y'all, Dixie here. In the past decade or so, I've been knocking off and actually adding a lot of items to my bucket list. For years, I've talked about having a bucket list, but just recently I actually sat down and wrote one out, which I feel like everybody should do. But I thought I'd share my list with y'all since the reason this channel exists is because I was crossing off an item on my bucket list, an item that had been there since before I probably knew what a bucket list was, and that was through hiking the Appalachian Trail. I first started this channel as I was documenting my through hike, and I actually have a lot of videos of other bucket list items that I've completed, like visiting Yellowstone and seeing Old Faithful and even the Lone Star Geyser, which I think is even better than Old Faithful. Getting to witness a volcano erupt and seeing flowing lava in person. And then most recently summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest point in the continent of Africa. And while I was there, I also got to knock off the bucket list item of using one of the squatter toilets at the airport. Before this channel started, there were other adventures that I was able to check off, like ice skating outside for the first time when I was working in Denver, Colorado. Sitting in a hot tub while it was snowing up in a training at Steamboat Springs in Wyoming. Getting to watch the Grand Ole Opry at the Ryman, and this was one I never thought I'd be able to do, but unfortunately, I guess fortunately for me, when the flooding happened in Tennessee, they had to move the Opry from Opry Mills area to the Ryman again back in 2010. Another music-related item was getting to visit Lukenbach, Texas, which I also did while I was at a training for work in Texas. Riding a bull, which I did on my 21st birthday. There was not alcohol included before the ride. Seeing Mount Rushmore, which was super disappointing, just like everybody told me it would be. It's still an amazing work of art. I mean, I can't do something like that, but while I was in that area, seeing Crazy Horse was actually as awesome as I had heard it would be. So definitely check that one out. And finally, getting to stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon when I was helping a friend move from Alabama to Oregon. And I get to expand on that even more coming up in the spring when I start my through hike of the Arizona Trail. Many of these items were completed on a whim or as a side trip to a business trip. So there are always opportunities to knock stuff off your bucket list and maybe things you didn't even know were on your bucket list until you look around. So for the items that I still have to complete on my bucket list, the first one just really clenches my heart every time I think about it, and that's seeing the Titanic. Obviously, time is of the essence on this one, and I've been interested in the Titanic since I was a little girl and found out that the day the Titanic hit the iceberg and the day that Lincoln was shot is the same day as my birthday, obviously different years. And then the movie came out when I was in middle school. I'm just saying I would have actually tried to make room for Jack on the Door. But ever since then, I have just dreamed of seeing the Titanic, like literally had dreams about it at night. And in college, I finally decided to look up if that was even possible. I think I was tipped off, heard somebody talking about there were voyages going down to the Titanic. Sure enough, there was a company taking people down there for the modest price of $50,000 per person. That's been over 10 years ago, and I guess nothing is safe from inflation because nowadays, there's still a chance to go down there with a company called Ocean Gate Expeditions, but the price per person these days is $250,000. You have to be physically fit and meet certain criteria, but you can sign up to go down there and help with the expedition, and the $250,000 is just your fee for going and helping. I hope they keep offering this type of service or opportunity, and that somehow by a stroke of a miracle I'm able to take y'all with me on an adventure to see the Titanic before it completely dissolves away. Okay, now that I've got that one off my heart, my next bucket list item is putting my arm in a cow to feel a baby calf. I know this is kind of a weird one, but this is something that I've wanted to do ever since I read All Creatures Great and Small, and then I worked at a vet school at Auburn University for a while in college, and I'd considered going to vet school instead of becoming an engineer. But yes, palpitating a cow, I guess is the scientific term, is on the bucket list. One bucket list item that I almost have completed, I'm 49/50ths of the way there, is visiting all 50 states by the time I'm 50. The only one that I have left is Alaska, and I feel like that's a pretty good last one to see. But I've been able to do this by taking jobs in different states, and then of course through hiking has helped a lot. Kind of in the same vein, I'd like to visit all 7 continents in the world. And right now I've got North America, Europe, Africa, and just barely Asia because I went to Doha, Qatar during my layover on my flight to Africa. If we didn't leave the airport and go explore, then I wouldn't count this one, but we did. So although I'd like to see more of Asia, still count it. A fairly recent one that I've added to my bucket list is swim with the piggies in the Bahamas. I've been wanting a pot-bellied pig probably maybe since before I wanted to hike the AT, but Fancy May would not approve. When I found out that I can go to the Bahamas and swim with some pigs though, I was pretty excited, and that definitely got added. From what I understand, they're located in Big Major Cay. Nobody really knows how they ended up there, whether there were sailors who had plans to eat them and they left them, or whether they swim to the island from a shipwreck, but either way, they're there and they're thriving. On the animal theme, one that also recently got added is going on a safari. This is something that I wish I had had time to do while I was in Africa, but I will be back to do it. One bucket list item I just narrowly missed out on is being in the total darkness zone for a solar eclipse. When I was through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail back in 2017, I was in Oregon at the time of the eclipse, but I was in like the 90-something% zone. And that's just not the same as total darkness, although it was still pretty cool. But I am hoping to pick this one up on a backpacking trip in 2024. A bucket list item that will probably never happen, but it's still on the list because you never know, is I would love to stand on the moon and look at the Earth. Almost every time I'm standing on the Earth and looking at the moon, I think about how cool it would be to stand there and look at over here. I just want to know what it's like. But then I think about how not many people have or would ever do that, so it would be kind of a lonely feeling knowing what it's like to stand there and look over here, and then you'd want to tell everybody when you're standing here and looking over there, but you know, they wouldn't understand unless they've done it. But I'd still go do it. I guess one of the more cliche items on my bucket list is seeing the pyramids, and I'm okay with it being cliche because that's definitely something I want to do. Next, I'd really love to attend the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I watch it every year, and I have since I was a kid, and I still get excited for Santa at the end of the parade. So just getting to see all of the action in person and the huge balloons would be really cool. Finally, the last thing on my bucket list, at least for now, because it's an ever-changing list, is I'd love to someday be a mom. I helped raise my much younger 4 siblings. I was 10 when the next one was born, and I was there watching them be born. I helped cut the umbilical cord. I've been there for all of the events as they were growing up and the diaper changes, and I've basically done everything for a child except have one emerge from me. So this is probably why when I graduated college, I wasn't in a rush to get married and have kids right away, because I know what goes into raising children. And I've had people comment on social media and here on this channel, you know, Dixie, if you're gonna have kids, your biological clock is ticking. And while I appreciate the sentiment, having children isn't something you can just snap your fingers and do, and you know, you can't run over to the grocery store and pick one up on aisle 4, for example. So just know that it is something that I want to do in life, and I'm still hopeful that it will happen. All right, y'all, well, that is my current bucket list. I encourage all of y'all, if you've kind of done like me and just had this hypothetical bucket list, you should really sit down and write one out and then make plans to actually complete one off the list. It doesn't have to be anything super crazy that costs a lot of money, but just start working towards that first really simple one. Maybe you can squeeze it into a business trip on the side or to something you've already got planned. Life is just too precious and short to be lost in the shuffle of day-to-day life. We have to really put effort into reaching our goals and chasing our dreams, because otherwise they just kind of get swept under the rug. If you need some motivation, sit down and listen to Kansas's Dust in the Wind, because literally we're just here like a little poof of dust and then we're gone. But anyway, make it count, and if any of y'all would like to share your bucket list items in the comments below, I'd love to see them and maybe steal a couple. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see y'all next time.